Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad to have you back again for a great podcast. And I tell you, this fourth quarter, I told you what we've got to do is really set ourselves up to set of foundational components that really propels us in the 2025 to have a successful year. And today's guest is going to help us in that area. And I think the key is for yourself to think about as a business owner, as a leader in your organization, what are you doing today to make you better come January 1? Yes, you can get it started now, but the key is then you get 12 months of benefit out of that change that you make today. And that's so crucial in business, especially today. It's tough to be in business and it's tough to have a small business. And today our guest is going to help us in that area. Bobby, would you share with our listeners what problem will you help them solve?
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me. For me, I have found that the problems I've encountered in my businesses and just all the things I've been able to do over the years has always surrounded my ability to develop people. And so the problem I'm going to help solve today, hopefully for someone out there listening, is like how to assess the talent in your organization, how to create opportunities for people that otherwise won't exist that can help not only yourself move forward in your business, but help them move forward as well.
Wow. I'm sure nobody here has any people problems. So, you probably want to tune off now. No, we know you're all raising your hand. You know this is an issue. And plus the challenge of the workforce. It's changing. So as employers, we have to be able to change too. So Bobby Shaw is an influential, collaborative, and high-energy restaurant executive recognized by FastCasual.com as a top 25 executive. Bobby authored the best-selling book, Cutting Onions, Leadership Lessons Learned from the Restaurant Industry in 2020, and he hosts the Cutting Onions podcast. Bobby, it is great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, this people issue, I think it's so important because I've been driving home to the people, the business owners I coach and the people I get to speak to. It's not just the generations are lazy, and sometimes they want to lay it on that. And Generation Z, they're the smallest generation in the workforce. So there's not the availability of the workforce before. The generation right after that is the millennials. It's the second smallest generation. So us boomers and Xers that are going out, there's more of us. And we think that, it means something else, but we have to change as employers. So I think one of the keys, and I really believe this because of course I have several in this Generation Z category that I grew up, my children, and they're in this category here, and they want that strong people culture. And I know you really talk a lot about culture, Bobby. So where I wanted to start with is really ask you, how can our business owners think about to build a strong people culture in their organizations?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you led with that. And I'm right alongside you. I have 5 kids. My kids ages 20 to 33, showing my age a little bit. But I'll tell you this, something I started seeing this in probably 2015, 2016. More than ever, I think that all generations for sure, but the ones that we're primarily talking about today, I think more than ever want to be connected to something that's actually bigger than they are. They want something that's really mission driven. And I think how they define success looks a lot different than maybe you or I would define it. And so I think number one, realizing that this next generation and probably even the generation after that is looking for something incredibly different. And so I think it starts with taking a holistic look at your organizational health and leadership and being really ask yourself some really hard questions and really asking yourself, am I creating a culture inside of my organization that makes people want to grow? Am I creating a culture where people want more for each other than they want for themselves. And I think if we can answer that question honestly, either way, I think that's going to help to guide us in the direction of where we need to go in terms of what we need to do. I read an article recently, and I completely believe this. Like, I think we saw this happen in corporate America where people were putting in foosball tables and, drinks and snacks and all that stuff. That's not what people want. That's not what people are looking for. Wholly, those are nice things, and you can do those things for sure. But what they really want is they want to be connected to a larger idea, to a broader idea, to something that's really meaningful, that's something that's going to impact the world for good. So I just think as an entrepreneur, as an owner, as a business owner, I think you have to ask yourself, what kind of culture do I have? And am I creating a culture that caters to what I want as the business owner? Or am I creating a culture that is conducive to helping my team want to grow?
Yeah, I think that's so crucial, and it's so hard to convince business owners because I'll be honest, I'm in that boomers exercise age myself, and you are probably with me too in that area with the age of our children that's there. But the thing we have to realize is we trade from one generation to the next.
That's right.
And there's a big long saying. When I wrote a book about millennials, and I looked it up and I saw this quote, and I'm like, this is perfect for it. And I can't give it to you exactly, but it talked about these troublous times, these youth of today, they just don't understand it, everything else. Well, when I used to share that with audiences, I'd always leave the date gone. And it was from Peter the Hermit back in 1274, I think it was. So it shows you one generation trades the next. So the question we have to ask ourselves is business owners, how do we make that change in our organization? But then also, how do we really find those top performers? And I know this is something you really key in on because it's great. Yeah, you got to have people, but man,
Yep.
it's a lot better to have the A-listers than having a whole bunch of C because you're pulling a heavy wagon if you got all C people with you and stuff. And A-listers is what I'm calling a top performer.
That's right.
So what does it mean to you to have that top performer? What type of individuals are that, I guess? And then share with me your philosophy of what you mean about top performers.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, that's the key to, I think, any organization and their ability to grow and scale, or just to be able to succeed in their business. And this concept of a top performer seems to be elusive, and it really doesn't have to be elusive. And it's just simply understanding that there are certain things that you have to look for, and you're looking for people who possess the effort and the ability and the desire. You need those three things. If you think about effort, ability, and desire, and take any one of those three things away from an individual, can they be a top performer? And you have to really challenge yourself to ask that question. And I think what's really interesting about this, Gary, is that the answer is no, you can't. I mean, you're looking for someone who, possesses the ability to do excellent work, is willing to put forth the effort to do excellent work, has a desire to do excellent work. And that's what you're looking for. That's what you need to have in order to be a thriving business, a thriving organization, a thriving company. But if you pull any one of those three things away, it is not going to work. And so, a top performer is someone who has the ability to perform excellent work and whose constant effort to do so and the desire to do so helps elevate themselves, but also helps elevate everyone around them.
Yeah, I love what you say there about elevate everyone around them. That's the key when you find these top performers. They don't just do it themselves. That becomes a magnet. Let's use the word magnet because they really help others come into that area. Let's talk about a little bit, if you don't mind, Bobby. Maybe can you share, because you've got a lot of restaurant experience. That was what a lot of people would think, oh my gosh, how do you find top performers in that industry? That's got to be really tough. Can you share maybe an example? You can change the name if you need to or whatever. Someone that in your organization, one of your organizations that, maybe you didn't start that way, but you was able to develop, because I am a believer you can help develop it for people.
Totally. Yes. I mean, I'll share just one kind of example, just kind of global high level is when I was with Chipotle and moved to Austin, Texas, and took over Austin, Houston, San Antonio. I remember walking into the Houston market and it was outgoing leadership. Things weren't going super well, and there's a lot of issues that had to be addressed for sure. But I remember this distinctly that everyone I had been told that might be a problem, um, that I was going to have to turn over, we're going to have to start over. Without exception, all those individuals needed was coaching and someone to care about them and ask them questions and care about the answers to those questions. And so as I began to dig deep around like, how did we get here? How was this perception for everyone here of being a low performer? It was just mind-boggling to me. And then I remember something, I'll never forget this, but the founder and CEO of Chipotle, Steve Ells, said, Bobby, he said, it's because they had an unenlightened leader. They were
Mm.
they did not believe and subscribe to this concept of surrounding yourself with people that are as good or better than you. And as a result, they surrounded themselves with people that they felt like, okay, I'm going to always be better than they are. When in reality, all these folks needed was just coaching and development. So that's one example. And then I think how you root these individuals out and these future leaders is I think you start there. You start with keeping in mind in your organization, even if you're a small business, you can hire people that are future leaders. You can hire people that have a desire to do more. And what I like to tell people, especially in the restaurant industry, which as you alluded to, is a very, very tough industry to grow and scale and even survive. So what I like to tell people is, look, I know not everyone we hire is going to be a GM, be a general manager, be a multi-unit leader. I know not everyone we hire is going to do that, but I want them to know they can be. And I
Mhm.
think that's a very important distinction, right? And so when you change your mindset from I'm just hiring an employee, a worker, I'm trying to fill a hole, I'm trying to plug a gap, to I'm going to hire someone who might be able to lead in my organization in the future, that changes everything. It changes the mindset of the questions you ask, of the answers that you're looking for from the candidates that you're interviewing. And so those are just a couple of things I wanted to share that I think could be really helpful.
Well, that is very interesting. And I just love what you talked about because it's having the perception, but you're not determining who it is. So,
Nope.
really, what you're doing is you're trying to find out, will they have that effort? Will they have that ability? Will they have that desire that's within them? And you find those type of individuals. Then, as you coach them, you're going to see that. And when we come back from break, I want to really dig into this care because I'm curious what you said there and some of the things I've been reading. I'm curious to see what you know too, Bobby. But we need to take a short commercial break. We're going to come back, so stay with us, and we'll take this short break. Feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and burned out in your business and life? Discover the Clarity Navigator. This system is your key to achieving your most elusive goals. Here's how it works. Through one-on-one coaching, we'll tailor a plan to your unique needs, helping you manage your workload, avoid burnout, and make the most of your time. We'll delve deep into your vision, gain clarity on your goals, and map out a 3-year plan for your business and personal life. We cover the vital areas like health, relationships, professional growth, financial stability, spiritual well-being, and continuous learning. Setting clear 3-year business goals and KPIs is our foundation. We break these down in achievable annual goals, each with 90-day targets and action plans. Say goodbye to stress and burnout. Take action now to join the Clarity Navigator program. Invest in yourself and your business and start living a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life. Achieve success on your terms with the Clarity Navigator. Go to show notes and click the link and step toward the life and business you've always dreamed of. And now back to the show. Well, I loved what you said there because I want to really dig into this concept of care. And I want our leaders and business owners that's listening to this podcast to hear this, Bobby, because I keep seeing in reports and some articles that I read, I know you stay up on those too in industries, and HR magazines, everywhere else. They're saying what employees really want now. And it doesn't matter what age group this is. They want to know that, number one, their employer does, but probably even more important is that their leader cares about them. And you mentioned it's the little things. It's not about, every big thing that's out there, but they're people and that they care. So I'm curious from your side of it, what you've seen in the industry and what you've seen in the restaurant industry and just with your work history. How do you see that really play out and how important is it?
It is so important. And I'll take a step back, and this idea of this intentional development of people and this caring for people, something that I learned at Chipotle that I just absolutely just believe to my core is this concept of there isn't anything more powerful than having a one-on-one conversation with someone, of sitting down across the table from someone and hearing not only their what they how things are going at work and how they're performing and what their goals are, but who are they as individuals, right? And what really matters to them, and how can we help them achieve their goals? And so something that we created at Chipotle that I still use today is it's called the development journal, and it's a simple one-page conversation that you sit down and everyone gets a first conversation, right, about where they are, where they want to be, what do they need in terms of help and support to get there, and help them set some goals. So everyone gets a first conversation. And then we have a development journal that's called the next conversation. Well, there's always a next conversation. But as long as you're with the organization, there's always a next conversation. And in that conversation, it's a little different. It's still one-on-one across the table from someone, but you're talking about how things are going on the goal that you're working on. Did you accomplish it? Or if you didn't accomplish it, what do you need to do to accomplish it? If you did, what's next, right? So it's this ongoing conversation, engagement of really getting to know someone. It is incredible the power that those type of conversations have, because it shows you're taking an interest in someone. It shows that you're caring for them, and there's nothing more powerful than that one-on-one conversation face to face.
Yeah. That is one that is so huge. If you, I always share this sometimes in some of my trainings, and everybody thinks it's going to take so long. But think about it. You don't have that many employees that report to you, and that one-on-one. Let's say the first one's going to probably take the longest, but after that, it's normally a 30-minute conversation or less. And the best part it is, it's their conversation. They're speaking 80%, and all you're doing is sitting there and listening. They can be prepared for it. They don't know what the questions are, right? It's not like it's hidden.
Exactly. And if I could just share one more thing, and this is
Sure.
about as current as it gets. I just got my latest copy of the HBR, the Harvard Business Review. The front cover says, "While we're still lonely at work." And it's so funny that we're having this conversation, because in this article, it shares some really great data. And I just want to share a couple quotes real quick, because I think it's really, really important. It says here, if employees are constantly working at the maximum capacity, they won't be able to invest time in pivotal interactions that generate trust and mutual knowledge. And I love that. And this other quote that I absolutely love is that you have to embed activities into the regular flow of organizational life that highlights their importance and increases the chances that everyone will participate. So I think one of the other things you have to be really aware of as a business owner and a leader is that you've got to create a workflow that works for everyone. And it may look different for them, but you have to kind of embed that into your organization, because what ends up happening if you don't create that culture where people are caring for one another, is that's when you start to see attrition and you start to see people leave.
Yeah. That's so important. And right now, I think it's just such a great conversation, because we're really setting people up to be prepared going into next year. What some of those changes you need to make with your team. And that becomes the real key, because that's how you're going to create engagement. And of course, when engagement goes up, productivity goes up. Correct. And it keeps the retention, which today is crucial in businesses, because if you're not retaining them, there may not be someone out there that you can hire to be able to replace them. So that becomes so important. Let's get into one area that we haven't touched about. And I know you like talking about some and kind of part of what your book is about, lessons learned. But really, when we talk about how to diagnose, when people have problems and
Yes.
try to get through that true root cause of the problem, because sometimes what we do as leaders, we do a bad job of this. We just see, oh, there's a problem, and we come in as leaders and we try to just fix everything. And I don't think that's what you're talking about here. How do we get to that root cause of that problem?
Yeah. Thanks for asking it. I really appreciate it, Gary. Such a great lesson I learned from a great mentor and leader of mine. A big shout out to Matt Scheiman. Matt was a master at this, and I remember just watching him just brilliantly model this. And I'll again using a restaurant as a context for this example. We were in a restaurant and we were there in the morning after they closed the night before, and it clearly was not a great close, right? It just wasn't. Like things weren't done properly. They weren't completed properly. They weren't even completed. And I remember watching Matt model this, where it would have been very easy to walk into that situation and just kind of give a laundry list of things that were wrong and things that needed to be done differently or needed to be done better. But that's not what Matt did. What Matt did is he went in and he dug down below the symptoms that we were seeing, which were all the things in the restaurant that were wrong. And I'll just share this really quick example because I think it's really powerful. So we were with the general manager and we went up to them and, we started kind of chatting with them and seeing how they were doing. And Matt said it looked like it was a pretty rough close the night before. And the manager said it was. And Matt said, why? And he said, well, we ended up being really shorthanded. Why? Well, we had two people that didn't come in last night. One of them was sick, but the other one just didn't show up. Matt said, why didn't the person show up? And he said, well, he wasn't comfortable coming in and working. It was a really busy night. He knew the other person was sick and he didn't come in. Why? It turns out that the answer to the fifth why was that this person was new, had not been properly trained. So that was our fault, right? Didn't know the expectations, didn't know what we wanted them to be doing, hadn't provided them the proper coaching to learn what they needed to do on that busy night. So we went all the way from having a rough close to really what we need to do is work on our onboarding and orientation and training of our new team members so they feel confident in performing the work that needs to be done. So it's this concept, and Toyota really is the one who started this, that called it, the 5 whys. So if you really want to dig deep below the actual symptoms of what you're seeing to the root cause, ask why 5 times in any situation, and you're going to get a whole lot closer than you ever were if you didn't do that.
Well, that right there, or you as a leader, if you're not doing that, is so valuable as you're going into this next year. When you see a problem, are you asking the 5 whys? Get to the root cause.
That's right.
And I think the other key to that is he didn't ever start to assume.
That's
because
right.
let's be honest, that's our problem. We saw that it was a lousy close.
Yep.
We could have easily just jumped on them and said, well, why didn't this get done? We would ask one.
Right.
And then, of course, what would have they done? Well, and they went on.
And they would have shut down, and then what most leaders do is they just say, you need to fix this. You need to get this fixed. Yeah. And that's not helpful. That's not helpful. So this concept of being able to dig below, because if you just address the symptoms, you're going to be spinning around in circles all the time, and you're never going to get to the root cause. If that had never come up about that team member not being properly trained and onboarded, we would have continued to have the same problem over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's great information. What a great lesson. I hope everybody takes that and use the 5 whys and how important that'd be. Now, I want to hear a little bit, because you kind of got an interesting title for a book. I know you've been in the restaurant industry, so that makes some sense to us. Cutting Onions, Leadership Lessons from the Restaurant Industry. Share with me, if you would, a little bit of the concepts we get out of it. And I'm sure, if I'm reading this right, those lessons would apply no matter if you're in the restaurant industry or if you're in service, retail, any type of business. Leadership lessons kind of cross the gamut as far as I see.
Totally. Yeah. This is definitely not just about the restaurant industry, but the title, just to give you a little context. So the title was one of the core foundational things that you had to learn to do at Chipotle was how to cut an onion. And you might think, well, isn't there only one way to cut an onion? Well, in fact, there's not. In fact, there's many ways to cut an onion. And the premise of the title is that if you're cutting onions for fajitas, that looks a lot different if you think about a fajita strip, right? It's a long strip, right? If you're cutting onions for guacamole, you're actually dicing, right? So the whole title is about how you do something is just as important as doing it. And the care and attention that goes into cutting an onion will be able to deliver the right recipe, the right onion for what you're making or not, right? So that's a little bit about the title. But so it's the importance of really how to build culture, right? And how to create high performing teams. And like we talked about earlier in the conversation, performing at a high level, it's really hard to do. So how do we provide the tools? How do we build a strong culture where people want more for each other than they want for themselves? And it's just the story. It's a lot of it's my story and my team's story of how we figured it out and how we tied the results we were getting, which were very, very good, right back to the culture that we were created, that were represented by the simple everyday things that we learned were the most important, which were taking care of our people, investing in them, creating opportunities for them that otherwise might not have existed, and being able to recognize them for performing at a high level. So it has a lot to do with that. But those things transcend the restaurant industry, right? That's not just about restaurants. That's every business out there, every entrepreneur, and every business owner. And so these were all the leadership lessons I learned that were kind of wrapped up into my book.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I tell people, jump in there because that's what we need. We need some ways to be able to do it. And Bobby's giving you a roadmap that's there. So we'll have that in show notes where you can get a copy of the book and stuff. We also going to have his website, bobbyshawconsulting.com, that's available there. He's on Instagram. It looks like X as well as LinkedIn. So we'll have all those links available to you that you can check him out. This has just been a great conversation, Bobby, because leadership to me is the key to success in business today. And I think if ever there's a time, we have to invest in our people. So practical, so timely. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's my honor. Thank you, Gary, for having me.
Now, before I let you go, though, I got one more question. I ask every guest the same question. What would be your best advice you would give to business owners?
I think that my best advice would be to learn very, very quickly that it's not about you. It's really not. It's about the culture you're creating. And the key to making that culture work for you and work for your organization is to surround yourself with people that are as good or better than you. And as scary as that might sound, you're going to be able to achieve more than you ever thought possible in your business if you learn how to do that, if you surround yourself with those sorts of individuals. If you're the enlightened leader versus the unenlightened leader who learns how to do that, you're going to be so successful. And, I love Andy Stanley. He's a big hero of mine. And he shared this quote years ago at LeaderCast in Atlanta that I love. Just like, if your leadership is all about you, it will not live beyond you. But if your leadership isn't all about you and it's about the other people that you are working with and that you are leading, it will live beyond you. And something he said that I'm still thinking about this all these years later is like, you don't want to live to serve to be someone's bad example. So learn how to surround yourself with great people, invest in them, and create opportunities for them, and you're going to do well.
Yeah, and your business will do well too. And
Yes.
the cool part about it is the fun part, even if they leave you down the road, they will come back and share with you the difference you made in their life. And I'm telling you, because I'm fortunate, I'm not trying to brag here, but I had some just recent example happen of employees that did that to me. And basically I went to lunch with them and I was surprised another employee joined us and they were talking about those times. And I gave it right back to them because I said, our company was as good as it was because of you all. You all helped create that culture and created it. But they gave me a lot of kudos and said, yeah, but you allowed it and you saw that within us. And man, you talk about, I was kind of doing a jumping, doing the hip scouts after that conversation and stuff after that lunch. I even came home and first thing I did was tell my wife all about it and stuff on that side, because that feels great.
Can I share one more thing?
Sure, please.
On that note, and I saw how excited you got when you shared that story. And I want to share one of those stories because I got a message. I got a message on LinkedIn a few years ago. I still have it. It's right in front of me, from someone I didn't know, someone I'd never worked with. I'll be brief here. It says, Bobby, we don't know each other, but wanted to say thank you for your influence at Chipotle. I started 2 years after you left the company, but still knew who you were because people spoke of your impact and they still do. Thanks for working so hard to instill a strong people culture. Not everything from the old days has been able to last through the leadership changes, but there are still thousands of us that are unwilling to let go of the meaning of empowerment. So thanks for all of it. The impact trickled down to a 20-year-old girl on tortilla who only worked the night shift about 15 hours a week. I wouldn't be where I am without the foundation that you built for people to succeed.
Wow. That's awesome, Bobby. Thank you for sharing.
Just right there with you, right? And so, and again, I'm very appreciative, right? And you're very appreciative of those comments. We also know it's not us, right? It's the work that's been done to create that culture that allowed people to thrive. And I will shout this from the rooftops for as long as I'm on this planet, because I'm telling you, culture matters. Yeah, I agree with you. I've written several books on positive culture myself, so that's one reason. We could probably go on and on for hours, but I know you have other things to get to, and I do too. But yes, sir.
I just can't thank you enough for being on, Bobby, and I just appreciate you so much. And thanks for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with our listeners today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Gary.
Now, audience, this is going to be a pretty quick action item. The 5 whys. Let's just start there. This is one of those podcasts, though, to be quite honest, you need to go back and listen to. But how are you going to get to the 5 whys with your people? How are you going to change your interaction with the people that you currently have? New, yes, let's get better at that too. But let's take the current people you have going into next year and let's make some time to make a difference in their life and spend some time with them to really get to know them. I guarantee it will increase your engagement. It will increase your retention. It will increase your profits. And better than anything else, you're going to enjoy your business a heck of a lot more, because it's going to be a lot more fun, because you're going to really get to know your people, which means you're building a culture that will be positive and will last and will make a difference. So thanks for joining us. We'll come back next week, have another great guest, but we'll see you back here next week. Make it a great day. Thanks for seeing us.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.